of the PSTA Personnel Committee to order, please. Would anyone from the public like to speak? If not, then we'll move on to the next item. Thank you. All right. So our first action item is our minutes from January 31st. Anyone have any amendments or comments? All in favor? Okay. All right. And now let's talk about Brad. Brad, do you want to please for yourself?
Yes. So Rachel has passed out 2 pieces of paper to you that summarizes the result, the 11 board members that have to date filled out the performance evaluation and sent it in to Commissioner Long's office. This is a reminder, we now have the scorecard system so that the board member evaluations are now evaluating not what I might have done in 2018, because the scorecard evaluates that. It's more how I conduct myself or meet the principles that the board adopted for PSTA. And so on the table, you can see very, very positive overall so far results. So I'm very pleased about that. The second sheet are then the recommendations that the board members completed for a merit-based adjustment to my salary and comments that they made. Those, you might recall, there was a table that a range of compensation adjustments based on the overall score, which all employees of PSTA followed the same process. You know, some board members chose to follow that and some didn't. The average computed by Rachel is shown at the bottom of the board members is 2.6. Now, so I'll pass this out because this is the form that we've had in the past. The Personnel Committee has used. This sort of gives some comparables. Gives my current compensation package. The new Hart CEO is scheduled to make $220,000, although I don't think he's signed a contract yet, so they're still negotiating that. APTA just sent out a book of CEO compensations, but it's based on a survey done in 2017, so it's now 2 years old.
Where are you in that? With APTA?
Well, the average, and it's broken down by different trans agency sizes by employees. So we're in the category of 500 to 999 employees. We have 610 employees. The average across those size systems was $234,000.
So is that the APTA study in 2017 that reflects that? That's the source of the information?
Yes.
Yeah.
PSTA adopted a budget assumption of 3.5 as a cushion.
Is that for you or for
everybody, including myself, including.
What is everybody else getting?
It was all based on the scorecard, of course, and so it was based on their merit. But anywhere between 3.5 and nothing. And I think the lowest person was, I don't know, 1 or something like that. The other thing that I produced, because we've talked about this in the past, and I mean, it's a public document, but maybe you could give this back to me, just because it has people's names on it. So I did my own analysis. This is sort of the question, the comment that was made a year ago about over a period of time, what has happened to the CEO's salary. So this is a list that I've just passed out of every PSTA employee that has worked at PSTA at least 4 years, and has every administrative employee. There's probably about 200 drivers that are not on this list. And then their compensation adjustment over the 7 years to 4 years that they've been here. And you can see that the people at the very top of the list have gotten promotions. So they, on the right-hand side is the average increase. If you divide the total increase in their salary divided by the number of years they've been there, and this is then ranked from highest to lowest. And so the very highest folks have gotten promotions. They've gotten new jobs, and that's why they have gotten pay increases. You flip to the very bottom of the last page in the document, and you find a great woman named Shelby Harris who retired. The reason that her salary has only gone up by $255 from 7 years ago is because she retired under the drop program, and then she's been rehired, but in a different job, mainly just to get the health insurance. So
I probably would, are you handing this out to the entire board?
well, I was going to ask your...
I would take her off of there, because that is such an outlier, and it's going to beg a lot of, questions that are really irrelevant.
Right.
So the point is?
The point is that, and relatively to Commissioner Banther, and he's on the committee, so I thought he might be here. He talks about in his comments about showing some leadership, which I certainly understand. So I just put this together, sort of.
Where did that go? Here we go.
To dem, and I think.
He doesn't talk about leadership. Oh, the forefront of his leadership, right? Okay.
And I just want to say, hey, look, there's been some leadership being shown for quite a few years here. And I will still be at the bottom of the list, even with a 3%, which is okay.
I have a question, Brad, about the table over here, because where it says 3% adjustment, I'm on this page here.
Yes.
And you go over and it says 197,950. What is that your current salary?
My current salary is up top there at 192.
Sorry, yeah.
And then a 3% increase would make it 197,950.
Okay, so I'm not a financial wizard when I don't have all my tools in front of me. So if it were to be, what would the 3 point, what was the average that came out? No.
2.6. Um, 197,182.
If it was 2.6.
Yeah.
I filled out my, okay, are you done?
Yes.
I just want to go first, if you don't mind, if it caused the two of you to think a little differently. I filled out my performance sheet in a way that is very unusual for me, because I did not make any narrative. And I usually fill in every single one with a narrative. I felt that that was a little over the top this year, because I have just been so intimately involved in the bowels of PSTA and the memorandum of understanding with T-BARTA in an effort to be a good steward of PSTA and a good steward of T-BARTA, given that I serve on both. And am the PSTA appointment to T-BARTA. Clearly, when I realized that they were in the ditch, and I do mean in the ditch, I mean, they've been there all along, but I never knew how deep it was until all of a sudden one day I ended up on the finance committee, which happens when you complain about things. So the only solution I could think of, because Debbie and our team has done such a yeoman's job at PSTA, was to figure out if we could have an interlocal agreement that would make PSTA the sole responsible party for the T-BARTA budget, which we did. And you can't imagine, after living through all of that, how gratifying it was to hear we have money in the bank. There's no more funds just sitting at the federal level that have not been applied for. I mean, there's just so much really good stuff going on. And frankly, you know, if everybody had all of that knowledge in their minds that are on the PSTA board, Brad would be getting double-digit increases, I do venture to say, because he's literally been running 2 agencies.
For a while.
Right? So that's that piece. The other piece is, and I've heard Commissioner Gerard articulate this, so it's interesting we're on the same page about this one piece. The one big, overwhelming critique that I have of you is the fact that in all this time, from green light till now, we have known that we were heading in a fiscal cliff situation. And although we've talked about it and everybody's aware of it, you personally have not really made that a front and center piece like we did in pulling T-BARTA out of the ditch. So I think if we put the same focus on doing our jobs for PSTA as hard as we did for T-BARTA, we could be just as successful. And I'd like to see us craft, if it was possible, a gentlewoman's agreement, because it's not lost on me, everybody here is a woman, Brad, except for you, that we could perhaps agree to a 3% for Brad for now, and preface some kind of remarks about how we would like to review that as soon as we have a real plan and some solid commitments for additional funding for PSTA. How does that sit?
Well, yes, I'd like to go in that direction for sure, but I don't have any problem just suggesting a 3% with no explanation. In fact, I wanted to go higher than that, but
I don't either, and I
I
think
mean, unfortunately, nobody else has gotten anything except for Henry, who reports directly to you.
No, Henry reports to James.
Well, I was going to say 4%, but then nobody.
Well, but the other piece I think we have to be, and you have to be sensitive to, Brad, is leading by example. And, you know, it's great to get rewarded financially when you're really excelling on every single cylinder. But this is an area that, you know, I think is right for you and Debbie to really wrap your heads around and come up with a solution. And while I'm all on board about going to the legislature next year to open up the local bill piece that created us, the other side of me says, be careful what you ask for. The legislature as it exists today is a squirrely bunch. And once that statute gets open, I could just see somebody from some other part of the state whipping right along to just do away with us.
I agree. I
You
agree.
know what I mean? So, I mean, I'd like to see, what?
As long as Brandis is on there.
Yeah, I mean, you just don't know. They're not all very honorable people anymore. And I'd like to see us focus on, there are a lot of other counties in our state who take general revenue dollars to support their transit agencies. And across the country they do that because it speaks to what their values are as a group, that they value public transportation.
Right.
And
And I don't think we'd have a hard time doing that.
well, we got,
I'm talking about out of our budget.
we got at least 2 people. We don't know about the third one yet that are always outliers when it comes to.
Well, I hear what you're saying, and I appreciate what you're saying. I completely agree what you're saying, that we do need to focus just as hard as we did on T-BARTA on the PSTA financial situation.
I mean, the T-BARTA situation was a triple-digit disaster. I mean, it was really critical, and we had to take care of that first.
It was, but it was relatively easy for people that had some knowledge of what they were doing to, you know, find them that substantial amount of money.
Well, that's what
that was
happens when you
available.
put people in charge that know what they're doing, i.e. Brad and Debbie.
Right.
And we had someone who didn't even want to look at the budget, let alone try to understand it.
Right, so the situation with PSTA is a little bit different in the fact that we as you know, we have been focused on this for quite a while. And as the workshop back in January articulated, the county commission or many of the identified solutions, not all, but most of the identified solutions do rest in part with the county commission. And as you know, I've established so far a really good working relationship with the new county executive, and Whit and I have a plan. I've been sharing it with I think since our last one-on-one, you and me, but with all the PSTA board members that I've had one-on-ones with, that we have a diligent action plan, just as you're speaking of, to look at every possible, you know, do a due diligence on all these different options that folks have identified, and as you say, including some of these things that folks have suggested us going to the legislature for, and, you know, just to be able to say we did do that. I mean, I felt like, even though it wasn't a very fruitful discussion, I thought that this discussion we just had with Senator Brandis about the bed tax he was clear with his
No, that's
concerns.
not being clear, that's being intellectually dishonest, Brad, because he's smart enough to know those guys are never gonna vote for it, to recommend it to the county commission. So it was his way of protecting the hoteliers and making us happy at the same time.
Doesn't make me happy.
Huh?
Doesn't make me happy.
I'm just saying,
Yeah, I know.
he didn't,
I think you're right.
it's very political, and he was, yeah, it's very disingenuous.
Yeah.
I mean, when you run it through your head, who's on the TVC, you figure out that more than half of them are North County, and they will never vote for St. Pete Beach against something Clearwater Beach wants. They all want an
Right.
enormous amount of money now for the Phillies.
Especially, they'll take into consideration, I think St. Pete Beach, that doesn't even, when was the last time they raised their ad valorem to pay for their bills? I mean, they're at like 3 point something.
Watch them, they got a new city manager, watch them come back around to ask the county for a CRA designation
And they're
again.
not gonna,
Take care of their blight.
Well,
So,
all I'm just
anyways,
responding to is that we are putting as much focus as, well, even probably, I would say more focus than we did on T. Barter, because I've got Cassandra and
Brad,
everybody
this
working
is
on it.
not a critique of what you're doing.
No, I know.
It's a critique about this last year and how we move forward.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're talking about compensation. It's the question of the day, and I'd like to suggest that we go ahead and recommend a 3%. I'm good with that. All of us stay on the compensation, or the personnel committee, and next year, we'll reboard and see what happens. Exactly, and maybe, given that everything falls in place, we can do this earlier and reward him earlier.
Maybe.
I support sticking with a clear 3% recommendation from the committee. I note, as I'm sure you all noticed, that each of us independently suggested 3%, and we're the personnel committee appointees. I thought it was interesting, you know, as soon as I say this, someone will probably point out a couple of exceptions, but it seemed to me that there may be a trend that the longest-serving members tend to rank Brad higher than some of the newer ones.
We've lived through the horrible of horrible.
Yes, and we
we've
know Brad
watched the
better.
growth.
I think it might reflect, you know, we know it takes a year or two of the onboarding process to really, if you're, and especially if you're not on something like the legislative committee, it really takes a while for people to connect the dots. Or if you represent a city that's maybe not had to interact with PSTA quite as much. So I think the people that are closest to Brad to see the type of work and the level of work and the stakeholders he's working with tend to give him higher marks than people who may not
I
see
would
it.
appreciate it if you would articulate that at the meeting.
I'd be glad to.
Don't you think, Pat? I mean,
To your suggestion, Chairwoman, I think finding that the money for I think that's Brad's job anyway. So, I mean, I think we could make the recommendation with some maybe emphasis on what we would like to see for the next year.
I think that is critically important because that falls within the goals and objectives for you to stretch for. Recognizing that a lot of it is outside of his control.
Yes.
So I don't think, unlike what one of these folks said, that he should be penalized for things that he has no control over.
Precisely. One more thing I caught, and I didn't catch it when we were putting together the tabulation sheet. I came close to giving Brad a 4.5 on communication, and I changed it to 5. It's labeled as honest and transparent communication. I don't think anyone is dishonest. I don't think anyone is not transparent, but I do think we can always do better in communication. And there's a constant question that's coming up from other electeds, like, well, during the green light, we heard PSTA was going to have to go through all these cuts, and now it looks like you guys are doing fine. So I think that we need to do a better job explaining the cuts that we have made and the innovations we have taken up to address that issue. But, you know, the way I look at it, it's kind of I think we can always do better with communication. I don't know if any of us feel like we ever completely aced that 100%.
No, and I agree with you 1,000%. However, with that said, when I first came on PSTA, I think this is a kind of a tell-all story. When I first came on PSTA, I really felt like a fish out of water. I didn't understand the jargon. I never really had an onboarding process. And clearly, I think I was here almost 3 years before I had an in-depth conversation with you. I mean, we didn't
Maybe.
have this where, don't you meet before every board meeting now with all the board members?
Yeah.
We didn't have any of that back then, if you remember, because you've been on it as long as I have. So I think we've come miles from where we were during Green Light. That's just not even a blip on my radar anymore.
Yeah, but to Commissioner Rice's point, there was comments made at the workshop by Commissioner Seal there, and Commissioner Eggers has made it quite often that sort of we have been talking about for a very long time a fiscal cliff. You know, the projections, if you look farther enough out into the future, although it's no different than the forecast that the county puts together or the city of any public entity puts together, where expenses are rising, you're very conservative on your expense growth and very conservative on your revenue. And they're just, you know, they're assumptions, and we've been presenting that for a long time.
Same with the transportation trust fund for the county.
The difference being that you're capped.
We're capped.
And
But we have done, I mean, the staff has done a fantastic job of maintaining and staying efficient and coming up with new ideas all the time on ways we can, you know, stay within our budget. And we've been all thankful for a healthy economy that has grown ad valorem faster than we thought back then. You know, which is some of the reason that we haven't until now. Those are the reasons we haven't until now had to have cuts. Yeah, I mean, I think we're in a much better position now than we were just a couple of years ago to articulate, and our communications system is much more robust to articulate. Even Commissioner Eggers said this to me, that he feels like we've done a pretty good job of explaining how getting the word out that we're pretty efficient. It was, I think.
Hey, it's pretty impressive to look at his scores today versus what they started out at.
Oh, yeah,
So he's growing too.
yeah.
He is. I mean, he's not even as big of a pain on the commission as he used to be. Except for yesterday.
You're saying that with love, right?
you know our assistants are back there falling out of their chairs. Along with him.
I love him. He's turning out to be quite a neat guy.
Yeah, he is, absolutely. Very knowledgeable.
Really in the weeds on a lot of it, but
Well,
it's
you
very
need to be, I
helpful.
couldn't handle the weeds myself, it's just too much.
Did you all took a position to oppose it, right?
Have you voted?
We
Did they vote?
hunted. Yes, was that yesterday?
No, I don't
Well,
think we
it was-
punted. We walked back that letter idea.
Yeah, it sort of said, good luck, which I thought was unfair to them.
Well, I do.
Yeah.
Or did
We
you
already
already
did
make
that.
a motion?
No, you
Okay.
did, and I seconded it, I think. For 3%.
I support it, I support it.
Okay.
Wage adjustment.
You didn't get fired today.
And
Woohoo.
Everything else is down.
we'll all work on the
Yes.
Thank you. this month, we're presenting the whole St. Pete Beach, Treasure Island, you know, the non-member cities.
So
thing.
what that thing you were talking to me about the other day, that the county commission is able to do something,
Yeah.
is that a real thing?
Yes, well, it's
Well, I
a,
mean, I mean,
as real as Alan Zimmett believes it is.
do you want to enlighten the rest of us?
Alan Zimmett has identified 2 ways in which the non-member cities could become part of PSTA. Option number 1 is the way that we've often talked about, that any city could vote, put a referendum on just in their city to be added. But it's been 37 years, and not one of the 7 areas that are not members have ever even done that. So, I'm not sure if that was likely. The second option is complex, it's complicated, but it would be a way that the county commission essentially could put things on the ballot that would kind of compel, or fix the problem and have all of the county be part of PSTA. It would.
Say that again? And it would be voted on countywide, right?
There would be 2. The county commission would put 2 measures on the ballot. It requires a dual vote, and this is essentially how PSTA was created back in 1982 with 2 different votes. Vote number 1 is only of the member cities that are currently in PSTA. So all of us who live in a city that is in PSTA, not the non-member cities, would be asked the question, should the PSTA district boundaries be expanded to countywide?
Okay.
Yes or no? It's not related to a tax or anything. Should the transit authorities' boundaries be expanded to countywide? And question number 2 then is asked of the entire county, including the non-member cities. And I don't know the exact ballot language, but the question is, should the ad valorem tax of 0.75 be levied across the whole PSTA district?
That's similar to what they do whenever there's been a gambling bill to address. You know, like when they want to have gambling in South Florida.
Yeah.
They make the whole state vote on it, even though it doesn't impact us here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's kind of like that. So, theoretically, the non-member areas might vote 100% against it, but the rest of the county wouldn't have had no impact financially. Wouldn't have any impact on
If
that.
all 5 cities came in, is that about $4 million additional dollars for PSTA?
Yes. It's actually probably a little bit more, but we're trying to estimate the value of Tierra Verde, which I think would be pretty high as an area.
So I think we need to aggressively pursue that one. That's a real thing. You know, Alan's talked to the county attorney.
I don't know. I know he talked to the county attorney about that in 2003. I don't know why.
The member cities, the member governments would vote whether or not we should be expanded, and then the vote for the non-member government, or no, the vote for the entire county would be, should 0.75 be levied across all districts?
I think that's, or
Yeah.
would it, should the north be the same as the existing?
That would probably
we
get the
were-
lawyers
If we were going to
debating
go,
about what had to be in the
if
language.
we were going to go that route, why wouldn't we just talk about a countywide surface transportation fee or I mean, it's the same question that you're asking, literally.
But that's what I was thinking,
Well-
if we expend all of this work on the referendum for these non-member governments, is that the same energy for
I would think it would have to be, because you don't,
the
if you're,
sales tax referendum?
if your other folks in the county say no, then it doesn't matter what the member cities want, it's gonna fail anyway. Yes, it does. That's how the gambling bill is. That's
No, no,
why they
no.
put it
There
on there.
aren't that many of them.
Well, the vote would be countywide, so
Correct, but if countywide it failed,
then it would not be implemented.
and what happens to the levy you already have?
Well, that's a good question. I've asked Alan. It obviously would need to be worded in a way that it wouldn't negate what we already have.
I'd be very cautious about moving down that route. I think if we are thinking that way, we might as well just go for the gusto
Well,
and do a countywide service.
Again,
Transportation.
$4
fee
million.
or something.
I think this one.
On a presidential election.
$4 million would be great. I mean, it would be a Band-Aid, to your point. We've also had some discussions, just sort of high-level discussions with some polling people and things like that, and obviously this issue is very complicated.
It's very complicated, and.
Most voters would not understand
Think
what they're
about-
voting on.
Think about this point. What if you used the same philosophy with an amendment, a new amendment that we used with green light, and message that vote for this surface, what did I say? Surface transportation fee countywide, and your PSTA ad valorem tax will go away. So you eliminate one off the ad valorem rolls and implement the new surface tax that is countywide. Now you don't have to involve any XYZ city because it's countywide.
That was essentially.
What kind of money would that generate? The same thing or more? Now you bring Tierra Verde in, you bring in everybody.
Well,
All of North County.
I mean, I think that's essentially the same thing, right?
But you're not targeting any specific city.
Right. I don't know. The questions on the ballot would not target any specific city. It's about the PSTA district being countywide.
Like we have a countywide EMS thing. Juvenile Welfare Board is countywide. There's a lot of, thank you, Senator Jones.
Well, yeah, so I've put together, mostly through Alan's help, a whole history of discussion. This has been the dominant discussion of the PSTA board since even before PSTA was created, since 1974, actually, is these non-member cities. So something should be done, or we should just
Yeah,
give up.
nothing is the same as it was 34 years ago. So what do we have to do?
Wait for that legislature to change their appetite.
It's easier to do, it's easier just to do the countywide referendum. Go to them.
Answering my own question,
Huh?
Well,
Maybe.
you told me, and we were up in Tallahassee, Senator Hooper said the same thing, that because it's PSA was created by a local bill, any senator can veto it.
Yes, because the local bill rules are different than they are in the Senate than they are in the House. In the House, every member of our delegation would have to vote for it. If there was one member that voted no here locally at the local public hearings, it wouldn't travel to Tallahassee.
Yeah.
So they
And she
all
probably
have
just
to
told me the
vote
same
for
thing.
it, but then when it gets up there, it can pass right out of the Senate in a consent agenda, but it can hit the Senate floor, and if one person stands up, and it doesn't even matter where they're from. It could be from Miami somewhere. I got plenty of those killed that way. My friend was out in Florida.
Well, have we, I know that we've spent some time talking about, how we could get the non-member revenue, but have we talked adequately about whether we should? Like, just write out pluses and minuses of pursuing it? The minuses being the political capital and time put into a referendum that would net us, if successful, 4
Right.
million a year. How does that affect our positioning for a referendum, a sales tax referendum, the gas tax, other things? Like, are we putting a lot of energy into the most difficult way to get the least amount of money? Even though it's a fair argument, it's totally fair to talk about it. It's totally fair to talk about the legislature letting cities hold
Yeah.
tax referendums, but in reality, it's just really difficult.
So that is the plan, that this issue with the non-member cities is just one of 6 or 7 issues that this month of February, we are, we're working hard to sort of do the due diligence and answer questions about all these different things, and I have a whole category of legislative things like cities, or the increasing the ad valorem, or any, and then Commissioner Long and I now have a meeting with the school superintendent about Pinellas County Schools. All these different ideas, but then also, then probably in March, starting with a follow-up meeting that Whit, Barry, and I are going to have, and then concluding hopefully end of March, early April with a county commission workshop to talk about what's the value of each and
The one thing
whether
we
it's worth it or
haven't
not,
talked about is
like what you were saying.
whether or not we could drive the whole issue through a citizen's petition, like they did in Hillsborough, and just circumvent the layers of government. And have our paid petitioners focus on those 5 cities that are not part of PSTA. Why? Because they would have people who would, if people sign a petition, they're likely to vote for what they sign.
But we don't care whether it gets blocked.
Yeah, we do. We want it countywide.
Well, no, we're not talking about, you're talking about then making the boundaries inclusive.
Whole county.
But I think Darby has a point. Put that on the ballot as a referendum, and then a year later, try to put on a sales tax on a referendum. It might be a little.
It deserves some discussion at the county commission level, what the pluses and minuses of doing that,
Right. Yeah, whether it's worth to do it, if it's going to kill the next tax, or make the next tax less likely, which is.
Yeah, and
Can you put some figures together as part of all that you're doing about what would a 1-cent sales tax
generate?
Yeah.
And then if you backed out the PSTA ad valorem, what would happen?
What would the difference be?
yeah.
And then, may I just remind everybody, we just had a nominating committee, and it's all men on the finance committee, and moving this conversation forward, if I can find it, right?
Oh, the St. Pete Beach thing does. Yeah. But we have an awesome,
You have a couple of liberals
Uh,
on this committee, and then you have a couple of
One.
conservatives.
Vince is on there.
Vince is on.
Or is it?
adjourn with our personnel committee?
Yeah. Now that we've discussed all that on the television,
As we should.
right,
Yeah.
maybe going further, we can talk about it. Um, What she just said. Yes.
Oh, I thought you were the chair.
You're the chair. I am the chair. All right, we're adjourned.
But some of the, some non-elected, I would say, experts or pollsters have told the whole saga about the non-member cities and the dual referendum and all that. And they have cautioned that it would be very, very hard to educate voters on how that all works. And they might just vote no.
Thank you,
because
Jim.
they don't.
Amazed though that they passed all those things last year, except for the one that we.
Well, that's true. I mean, lots of people don't understand what they vote on.
Oh,
Yeah.
did you hear the analysis on that? I don't think he was there. The Florida Association of Counties did a huge analysis of that whole election.
It'd be great to
Why
have it done before we
ours
go to
failed
referendum.
and all the others passed. And
Yeah.
I did not know. They
Did you-
they
did
had
you-
a
Although
huge
2021
sum of
would have
money
the CP.
that they put behind digital media.
2020?
2021.
And
I mean,
they
yeah,
drove
2021.
it. It was,
Did you,
they
I don't
they
think Witt sent it to me.
surmised
Witt sent,
that there was not a
uh,
person in the state of Florida that wasn't
there's a
touched
group
by
called,
vote no on
maybe
whatever
you've heard of
vote.
it, some kind of group that
Yeah.
has a name
That's
about,
pretty interesting.
against lane elimination.
How the
Oh,
world
yeah,
operates.
Ed Carlson.
Yeah.
West Side, yeah. they're-
Leaving us behind, I might add.
It's a spillover about the MLK project, sort of anti-Priceman, and now they're using it on paid streets. And
Yeah.
I think our Central Avenue BRT is getting caught up in that confusion.
It is, yes. Huh. Well, yeah, the email that Witt got was almost entirely about about Mayor Kreisman and the complete streets.
Why do they hate him so much?
Well, I think there's some fake outrage happening.
I have a girlfriend that's been a friend of mine for, ever since we were together. And she's one of the first friends I had when I came to Florida, and she can't even say his name without just seething.
Really?
Yeah.
It was a terrible, the election. So divisive. It was really an ugly election.
But I'm not sure if it was a complete reversal, but at the meeting we just had on Wednesday with the chamber, the president of the chamber was there, and he said, oh, yeah, well, now that we're beyond the MLK, and we all see that it's not the end of the world, it's okay.
Yeah,
They're not beyond yet.
yeah. It's Matt Letler.
I know it is.
It's really been a big problem, and I don't want to have this movie.
He is a problem. You
I
should
know.
have seen him when he came to Washington.
I was with you, I saw it.
I mean, he's a mess, a hot mess. Prancing around, darting back and forth to the White House.
Well, at that meeting, he stated that he was doing outreach to businesses along the First Avenue North and South corridor to talk to businesses about BRT. And I'm like, no, you're not. What information do you have? You're not going to communicate the vision of what we're working on. You're going to stir up opposition. Like, do you think?
He is.
I
He
tried
will.
to talk to Ann about how he ever got that job. She is, I don't know what's happening.
Well, it sounded to me like he realized that most of the public comment so far has been in favor of the bike lanes. From the Tampa Bay Times article to the city the bike people have come out, and then Matt has somehow decided that it's his job to fight against the bikes to get the businesses riled up about losing the parking. I know.
We have a guy running for city council, and his whole
Really?
Or CNA, or District 1, 2.
Because he's serious this time.
He's the only one in that race so far.
I
He's
asked
the
him,
only one.
I
He still
asked
needs
him
some
when
polishing.
when he
Oh,
came
there's
to
some.
talk to me. Because the last time when he ran against Kathleen,
He's a man's. I had breakfast with him, and I said, so what do I work on? What have I been working on the last few years that you are most interested in, that I can share with you some insight or how we could work together? He said, I have no clue what you do. I was like, okay, ego, check. I'm like, I don't expect everybody to know what I work on, but
but if
you
you're
want
running
a job
interested in
working with
council,
me.
you might want to.
If you read a newspaper, I was
Well,
like, wow. He's there
not so much
presumably